Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today's post, I'm going to share with you some of my vintage sewing machines. Okay, if you ever watch Dragon Ball Z, if you're into anime, you will know that one of the top rules about the Super Saiyans is that you're not supposed to show your power level. So I'm not going to show you my crazy level with the vintage sewing machines and actually show you all of them in one go, because yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. So what I am gonna do is I'm gonna show you my favorite of the Singers, which is the Singer model 201K. So stay tuned whilst I show you my Singer 201Ks, and maybe here's a little game that we could play. Try and guess how many I have before we get to the end of the video, and then check and see if you were able to guess my crazy level. Okay, let's get to it. So this is the first one, and this is a Singer 201K Mach 1, and I got this on eBay for £20. It's a hand crank, and what that means is you actually use this hand crank here, and it makes a very soothing sound. I don't know if you can hear it. It's so smooth, it literally purrs along. Now, I really love this because this, I bought it on eBay, and I bought it for £20 on eBay, and it was a local collection, but it had been living outside for over 30 years, so it was just the shellacking on the machine itself was completely gone, and everything was just rusted over, and I basically had to resurrect it and it was completely seized up. Nothing was moving, and so I had to give it an oil bath to get everything moving. And I'm going to put up some pictures so that you can see what it looked like before, and then some of the pictures of me doing the work on it. So this is the behind here. You can see it's got this beautiful scroll work. I love this place with that beautiful scroll work and details. And because it was kept outside in the sun, the decals are not gold anymore. So when they are new, they are actually gold, but they've gone a little bit silver. What I did try and do was use a pencil, a metallic acrylic paint metal pencil, to try and redo some of the decals. So this was completely gone, it had completely come off, and then I had to draw it on using the metallic acrylic paint. And I also tried to do that around here because most of this had worn off. So this was painstaking work, which took me several weeks to do because I could only do it line by line and then wait for it to dry before doing the next line. But it's not perfect, but it works. And so there we go. So everything, I had to take this apart, including the bobbing case and everything, so that I could clean it, soak the rusted bits in evapor rust, and then clean them and brush them out. But eventually we got a working machine, and the kids really love playing around with this. It didn't come with a base, it just was like this with these. But let's see, I'm just going to show you a close-up of the cleaning job. So there we go. You can see there's been nicely oiled and it's been cleaned, all of the rust removed, and I want to show you the surface. Hang on. So the surface here, the shellacking had come off, and you can see on there where I didn't take it all off, it had cracked off and it was coming away with the decals. So I stopped trying to take it off here because it was removing the decals. And even though I tried filling this in with the acrylic gold pencil, it didn't come out that well. But for the rest of the body, I removed the shellac, and then I had to paint on a new durable finish, let it dry, and then I had to use different types of sandpaper a 3000 grade sandpaper first with some oil on it, with some 3-in-1 oil, and then a 5000 grade and then a 7000 grade sandpaper to try and get it. And you can still see the brush strokes. So I still have some ways to go before I get everything nice and smooth, and then the varnish is going to cure. It takes a few months to actually cure to back to being a nice finish. And then you've got there, that's your stitch length regulator, and it's got a reverse stitch, so when you pull this all the way up, it goes into the reverse. So this is something I do when I've got a spare 5 minutes or so. I'll just grab my 3-in-1 oil and the sandpaper, and I'll just start sanding it down so that I can remove those ridges. But it will be a few months yet before this is ready. So I tried taking off some of the rust on the bobbin winder, but you know, this thing is really old. This is about 80 years old, and it's just fascinating to me that it actually still works. So this is my Singer number one, first Singer 201K. And by the way, if you want to find out which year your machine was manufactured, you just look at the serial number, and there's a website, links will be in the description box, and you can find out. So this one was a 1932 one. Okay, up next is the Singer 201K, and this is the Mach 2 version. So the first one that I showed you, that was made with a cast iron body, so it's really, really heavy. But these were made using aluminium compounds, so they're very, very light, much lighter than the original ones. Can't quite remember exactly which year this one was made, but I'll put it down there somewhere. So the story with this one was that it had been abandoned in a storage box for almost 30 years or something along those lines, and then it was just being sold off, and I picked it up for £30, and it came in a cabinet, which I'll show you just now. So first of all, it's got some pin rush, and this tells you that this was probably used by a dressmaker, because they would have like this strap of thick wadding of fabric around here where they could just stick the pins on as they were sewing, and it would just chip into this and just ruin it. So now, as you can see, this is an empty shell. So this is one of my long-term projects, because I have removed everything in it, all of the horizontal shafts thingies, the gears, the stitch length regulator, everything is gone. And that's because with this one, it was damaged so much, the shellacking, or what they call the Japan finish, was completely damaged, and it was coming away with the decals, as you can see there. So what I decided was, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this one. I'm going to take it all completely apart, and I'm going to strip it of the paint. So I even removed the tensioning unit, which is quite scary, because one of the things is never mess about with the tensioning unit. But I took it off because I feel fairly confident now that I can put it back together. But I took everything off, including the needle bar and everything, which took a few hours. I'm going to strip it completely, and then I'm going to paint it. I'm kind of thinking pink at the moment. I'm thinking about doing it in pink, but I don't want to do it in the traditional Singer colors, because I'm doing like a full cosmetic restoration. So this is going to be a pink sewing machine. So I'm just going to show you the parts that came out of it, but this is what the shell looks like without the gears, without the thingy. I couldn't get this off. I really could not figure out how to get that off, so I'm just going to have to tape around it when it comes around to painting it. So I've already identified that I'll need a primer, and then I will need like the spray on stuff, and I'm going to get some decals. They sell the original Singer decals, and I'm going to get those, and then I'll pop and I will put them on. Okay, so I'm going to show you the next thing, like the insides of this, and I'll also show you the cabinet that came with it. Okay, so these are the bits, every single part that came from that 201K is in here. So that's the needle bar and the spring, and this is the bobbin winder cover, and this is all the back stuff. This is the tensioning unit. This is what it looks like when it's all come apart. And this was soaked in evaporust to eat away at the rust. Oh my God. Everything's fine. Just dropped my phone. But we've got, and then there's the spoke, the wheel. So that's it. And I tried to label everything there. So this is the bobbin winder cover that I was experimenting on using a paint stripper. So I've used two different type of paint strippers, and all they've done is just remove the shellac on there, but they haven't actually removed the paint. They've only just chipped away. So I'm going to have to get an industrial strength remover. That's what I learned. I'm not going to be able to just use the cheap Wilkinson's stuff that I was trying. But yeah, so I've been doing my tests on that. So this is what we have currently living underneath the sofa. Right. So moving on, this is the cabinet that came with it. Hang on. This is the cabinet that came with it. And this was in terrible condition, but it was otherwise okay. Most of the bed things were with the finish. So what I did was I sanded it all down, and then I gave it a fresh lick of varnish paint. And I did about 3 coats, and you now have this really lovely sheen on it. There were bits where I overpainted, and you can clearly see the droplets on it. So it sort of opens up like that. And one thing I did do was I completely used my wire brush to clean these, and you can see the copper, and even with these were completely rusted over, and I had to use my wire brush for them. But yeah, this came out really nicely once I refreshed it with a fresh lick of paint, as they say. So now when you look on the inside here, hang on. Okay, so this is the inside. Sorry, the light is coming from behind, so it's not all that great, but hopefully you can kind of get an idea. So this is a very interesting one because it's actually got a treadle, but it's powered with an electric motor, which I'll show you in a bit. But it's got like this gibbet here, which connects up to the bait-like power thing. In fact, you know what? Let me get it out so that I can show it to you. But this is quite fascinating because it's a combination of a treadle and an electrical powered sewing machine. I just realized that I literally cannot lift this entire thing out and hold my phone at the same time. So I'm just going to show it to you. So this is the power thing that's attached inside the cabinet, and that gibbet that I showed you, it hooks onto here so that when you're working the treadle, it's pulling this, and then this is powering the sewing machine. So that's the bracket that holds it, but it's sort of like it's all attached and I can't take it apart. But I need to rewire this because the rubber that covers the wiring had completely come off. And the previous owner, what they had done was they had wrapped each of these in pieces of fabric, which is quite dangerous. But this is the whole piece right here, and that will need to be put. And this is the underbed bit, and this is the caddy that will go on it. That's from another machine. But so that is where that lives for now, but this is where the power thing would go there, and this would attach to that, so that when you're doing that, so it doesn't actually need a treadle. But yeah, it's fascinating because that was the first time that I'd ever come across something like that. So that's machine number 2. Okay, so now I'm heading upstairs to my sewing studio because that's where the rest of the 201Ks are. So those ones are still in the process of being finished up, with the hand crank one more closer to being completed than the Mac 2, which needs to be completely stripped of paint and taken up. So we're off to see number 3 now. Let's see if I can change this. So the next 201K that I'm going to show you is one that I'm actually currently using for my current sewing project, which I'll give you a sneak peek of. I'm working on this blouse here. It's a bird style pattern, but this is a 201K, which is also in a cabinet. And I got this one on Gumtree for £30. It's from 1932, and it's an electric powered one. So let's have a look at what we have. So first of all, it didn't need any work. The cabinet didn't need any work. It just needed to be cleaned up. That's all. And so let me show you. One of the main things that I did was I added some caster wheels onto the base, and these are just very simple screw-in caster wheels, and the idea was so that it would be easy for me to just pull it out. So if you just hang tight, I'm going to pull it out and then we'll go to opening it. Okay, so I've pulled it out, and you just do that, and then you open your cabinet to go like that, and ta-da! And you have like your cute little caddy here, which holds stuff. And then in there, you'll see that's the Bakelite knob foot pedal that powers the machine itself. And this is what the machine is like. My navy blue thread. Just gonna get that out. It's threaded up already, so right. I'm gonna need both hands for this. Okay, and there it is in its full glory. And you can see it's been used quite well because the decals on here are sort of worn out from pushing the fabric through. And there's a serial number that tells me that it's from 1932, and it's a really beautiful machine. I am having so much fun sewing with it, and I've been working on this project with it. And again, it's got a reverse stitch. This was in really good condition for its age, and it didn't need much except from just cleaning off all the dust and just oiling it. And that was all I needed to do, and she was good to go. This is a really, really beautiful machine, and I'm really, really having so much fun with it. So you can see there, that's the tension dial, and that's the needle bar, and in fact, I just had to buy some new 66K bobbins, because the bobbins that I had before were what are called the class 15 bobbins, and they're just too thick for this bobbin case, and I prefer to use plastic ones. And that's because metal on metal means that you're wearing down the metal much faster. And I know that for some people within the vintage sewing machine community would, disown me for the fact that I use plastic in a vintage sewing machine. But honestly, if this bit here, so let me just take this out, if this bobbin case wears off eventually, and it will do, and the allowances are so fine on these machines because it's great engineering, if you even lose a 0.5 millimeter down there, then you're going to have problems with the bobbin, and plastic doesn't cause as much abrasion as it does. And I found that the plastic ones don't make as much of a difference. I'm just using this one because it was preloaded already with the navy, but once that's finished, it's back to using the plastic ones. But yeah, so I love this one. It's really good, and it's next to my Joneses right now. Next to my. The only thing is it doesn't do buttonholes. For me, that's its biggest shortcoming, that it doesn't do buttonholes. But that is Singer 201K number 3, currently in use for this sewing project. I'll show you. So look at that beautiful stitching. See? A machine from 1932. Okay, let's go check out the next one. So the next one is another 201K, which is in this beautifully made faux snake skin. Now, is that snake skin or is that elephant? It's like some sort of an animal skin, but it's fake. It's like a fake textured one. That's a very neat looking briefcase. It's quite big. Let me give you something to scale it. So this is a normal sized mug, and you can kind of see how big it is. Okay, so I can't actually open this and hold a camera at the same time, so I'm just gonna do my best so you can. Ta-da! Singer 201K Mark II in beige. So the Mark IIs were made in two colors, this beige one and the black one, whereas the 201Ks Mark Is were only made in the trademark black gloss. And here we are. And this one doesn't have any decals. I've never seen a beige one with decals actually. So I'm just going to get it out and we'll get a closer look at it. Right, so here we go. Singer 201K Mark II in beige. Now this is a great restoration story. I'm just going to remove this. So it's got the Bakelite touch knob. So with all of my machines, I open up the foot pedal and I clean out all of the electric contacts and basically, you know, just sort it out. And with this one, I had to wash the cable using washing up liquid, and I'll show you pictures on there of how I did it, because this was a filthy dirty. It was like black. Those cables were black, and it took a lot of washing to get them back to the normal brown color. So I'm very proud of this particular restoration because this took a long time. So first of all, when I got it, it was completely seized up. It was not moving at all, and it needed an oil bath for about 3 or 4 days of putting in more oil and putting in more oil before we eventually got it to move. And even then, we only got it to move by removing the handle, going down to the shaft, and then using a ratchet wrench and a lot of brute force to finally get it to shift. And once I opened it up to go inside, it was because it had a lot of water damage. So everything, all of the shafts inside were completely covered in rust. And let's see if I can show it to you. Never mind. I was going to show you what the underbed looks like now, because you could see it had been sitting in water for a really long time. I got this one for £35, by the way. Oh yeah, so you can see on there how the rust had eaten into everything, really. And so even though I managed to get most of the rust off, you can still see there's some residue of some rust there from all of the oiling. But because it had so much rust, I did something very unconventional, and I'll show you pictures of that. I basically decided to do my best version of soaking the inside in evaporust. So evaporust is this substance that actually eats the rust off of things. And so I had to plug all of the holes on this main shaft hold it so that it was standing on its nose, and then I poured in a mixture of evapor rust so that it would eat the rust on the main horizontal shaft, and it was sitting like that for a good 24 hours, and then when we poured it out, you could see all of the rust bits floating. So that was a very unconventional tactic that I used, but it worked, and I've used this for 2 sewing projects so far, and I am very happy. But yeah, all of this stuff was taken out and cleaned. So this one's got the plastic bobbin in it, and I used this for my last 2 sewing projects. But I love it. It came out really well. I mean, this has got some damage to, yeah, but it's a really beautiful machine, and it sews beautifully. And I even had to take apart the motor as well. Oh, sorry guys. I even had to take apart the motor and clean it up as well. So I've been learning a lot about electronics and how rotor motors work. It needs a new belt though. It's working right now, but it does need a new belt. But it just fascinates me that these things were built to last, and the design principles are so amazing. Ta-da. So there you have it, guys. I have 4 201 K Singer vintage sewing machines. 2 of the Mac 2s I've got in the beige and the black, and then I've got 2 of the Mac 1s, and one is the hand crank and one is an electric powered one. So don't ask me. I know that probably one of the top questions that you'll probably be thinking of is, what are you going to do with all of these machines? I have no idea yet. Right now I'm just experiencing the joy of getting a machine that is completely rusted over, not moving, and I get it. The first thing I do is do a consultation to see what could possibly be causing it not to move, and then I go through the process of the oil baths and cleaning it up, and then just seeing it come back to life. I love doing that so much. Plus the engineering fascinates me, because back in the day they were designing these things to last, particularly the 201K. It was considered the best. It still is considered to be one of the best sewing machines ever built, because they were building them to last a lifetime. Eventually, I had to stop making the 201K because it became too expensive to make it, and because people weren't coming back to buy new ones since they were so gosh darn good. They don't do stuff like that these days. They don't design. In fact, now good design has got obsolescence inbuilt in it. So I love that, and it fascinates me that something could have been abandoned outside, left to the elements for decades, and you can still bring it back to life. Fascinating, absolutely fantastic. So like I said, I am not going to show you all of my vintage sewing machine craziness. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you did, do give it a big thumbs up down below. And I would love to know if you're also a vintage sewing machine collector like I am. And, let me know in the comments box down below. Do you have 201Ks as well? Are you as partial to them as I am? I have had to work really hard not to buy any more of them. My husband basically put his foot down, which almost never happens. By the way, he is such an enabling sort of husband. But he was just like, babe, make up a spreadsheet, and then we need to talk about this. And then we did, and when the numbers that I had was in the 2-figure range, I was like, okay, no more. So right now I'm just focusing on resurrecting the ones that I already have. But I'd love to hear your vintage sewing machine stories, if there's anybody who's into that. If you have any questions about vintage sewing machines, and if that's something that you're interested in, hit me up in the comments box. And until I see you guys next time, happy sewing. Do remember to subscribe, like, and turn on your notifications so whenever I put out a new video, something happens on your phone. From my crew and I, bye.